beginning was the beat.
What makes young people crave the rave?
I'm curious what makes you so curious.
In the beginning was the beat.
Welcome to the Rave Curious Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Glazer. What are we curious about? We're curious about electronic music and the culture that surrounds it. And how do we satisfy that curiosity? We try to satisfy it by talking to the people who have dedicated their lives to the electronic music scene, DJs, producers, promoters, and more. And often all of the above, as is the case of this week's guest, Luca Venezia, a.k.a. Curses, a.k.a. Drop the Lime. Luca is probably best known as the co-founder of Trouble and Bass, the New York record label and party that in a lot of ways helped define the New York electronic music scene in the mid-2000s. He recently moved to Berlin, where we sat down for an excellent conversation. I had actually never met Luca before, but funny story, 4 years ago, I decided to move to Berlin after having lived in Los Angeles for about 8 years. And for the first month and a half, I stayed with a buddy in his spare room in the Neukölln district of Berlin. You might have heard of it. It's where all the hipsters move to. But this was 2011. It wasn't quite hipster yet, but I lived there for about a month. Fast forward 4.5 years later, and Luca moves to Berlin, ended up crashing in the same room where I stayed my first month in Berlin. So we have that in common. We talk about that. We talk about 9/11. We talk about him growing up in New York. We talk about unfortunate tattoos. We talk about all kinds of stuff. He talks, I talk a lot on this one. So hopefully, if you're a fan of Luca's and you have no idea who I am, which is probably everybody, you'll bear with us. But it was a really great conversation. I enjoyed it. Seemed like he enjoyed it, and I hope you'll enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Rave Curious Podcast is where we are at, and that's what you're listening to. So here it is, Rave Curious Podcast with Luca Venezia, a.k.a. Curses. We're sitting here with Luca Venezia, a.k.a. Drop the Lime, talking about really small thumb drives.
A.k.a. Curses.
A.k.a. Curses, that's right.
Drop the Lime, rest in peace.
Oh, so you're not, yeah, I mean, it's been a long time.
I haven't done it in a while. 2 years maybe now.
Okay, so not that long.
Not that
long.
Yeah.
So, why? Why'd you kill it? Kill him, kill her, kill it, what is it?
Kill them. Why did I kill them? I put them on the back burner. Mm-hmm. It became a band. So it became so huge, where with a live drummer and live backup singers and me playing guitar, mixing with samplers, that I wanted to strip everything back down and get back to what I started, why I got into this in the first place, which was DJing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
DJing and also producing, obviously.
And producing, yes. And also maybe a little more laid back, stripped back, soulful vibes. Mm-hmm. I got tired of mosh pits at a club.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was kind of a thing, and it's funny because it's not funny. It's just I definitely remember when that happened, and by like 2006, 2007, something
definitely.
like that, when like the electro thing came in, and I was experiencing that in LA. Like hanging out with, like we were talking before we started about, Them Jeans, Jason Stewart, and, Steve Aoki and Cinespace and that whole thing. And
huge.
I think you were experiencing that same thing in New York at the time.
Absolutely, with girls and boys, like Webster Hall parties. Mm-hmm. And we were doing Trouble and Bass at Studio B. A lot of those with like Fixed, like JDH and Dave P, those guys. Out of nowhere, people just started moshing. I think it was the combination of Justice and Ed Banger mixing in the rock and roll with the dance music.
Plus, it was just kind of a bit of the aesthetic driven as well, because it was, the whole the height of the cobra snake and the elegantly wasted or not elegantly wasted, just wasted.
Absolutely.
As long as you were it was all captured in that moment. And of course, the best photographs are always going to be. No one ever looks that cool when they're dancing, but everyone looks cool when they're like crowd surfing.
Yeah, when they're crowd surfing, when they're like jumping off stage, yeah, hanging from rafters.
Literally.
Yeah.
So, were you doing that? Was that?
I was. I'm very guilty of that. I really think I had to tone down on DTL because I was hurting myself too. I was like jumping around and smashing myself about and.
Yeah. Well, now you see footage of
older.
you see footage of like Steve and he's like bouncing on a trampoline like misses.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like everyone like I saw a clip of like Skrillex getting whacked in the head or something like
the bloopers.
Yeah.
The rave bloopers. Has somebody compiled rave bloopers?
I'm sure.
I need to see this.
If not, then fuck this podcast.
I want to see that.
Put that up on YouTube.
Rave
and
bloopers.
Let the ad revenue come in.
Oh man, that'd be good.
So, but yeah. So, but let's go back. Like, how did you like? That was where that kind of mid 2000s scene was where I first heard of you. I think it's where most people first heard of you. But what's your background? Where are you from?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up from a very artistic background. So my dad, abstract painter. Oh, wow. My mother, fine art photographer. So they were always very supportive when I chose music. They let me be weird, let me be creative. I went to music school. I went to Bard College. I went to Trevor Day High School. Around a lot of other New York musicians who we're all still tied together, like Holy Ghost and Penguin Prison, Fat Jew.
I don't know Fat Jew.
A lot of like quirky characters all went to the same high school and college. Okay. And yeah, I've always been very eclectic. So I've been inspired by artists like Tom Waits, Philip Glass, and then Fugazi, and then like Omni Trio and Ronnie Size and Ed Russian Optical and like The Orb. And so it was very all over the place.
Kind of. But I think one thing that's probably in common with all that, it's unlike a lot of electronic music, those are all kind of song based. Or as much as you go, like, I mean, obviously, yeah, we're talking about like, Tom Waits is, a great singer. Except Philip Glass, which is the total opposite of all these things. Yeah. But then like, Fugazi, obviously, but then like, Orbital, Omni Trio, Ronnie Size, like these were people who took, what was fundamentally faceless, droning on for hours club music and made it, and gave it a little bit of, or not, just, that was their take on it.
Yeah, they were like radio edits of a song that also was a club edit. Right. Yeah, definitely.
So you grew up in New York then?
I grew up in Tribeca, in Manhattan, my whole life, in a giant loft that my dad bought in the 70s. So he also was a New Yorker. Right. It was deep in my blood. Mm-hmm.
So what was what was it like? Because I don't know anybody that grew like my dad grew up in Brooklyn in the 60s, 50s and 60s. But that's a whole other time, a whole other place. What was it like? How old? Like what? How old are you? When were you born?
Yeah, I was born in 81.
81. Okay.
So I definitely got the tail end of the 80s, but the 90s full effect. Like
right.
The movie Kids was very the fun bits, not the depressing bits.
Probably a little bit of all of the above. And Kids just turned 20, 25, something like 20, that.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I remember walking out of that movie. I must have been 75, so I was already like my mid 20s when that came out. No, yeah.
How did you take that film?
I remember it was one of the first times I felt like that's not me.
Yeah,
like that's I was close enough to that to feel a connection to it.
Yeah,
but definitely like no, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah,
like no, I'm not. So it's not like. Watching, I'm like, well, yeah, of course. And I felt a little like left out because I was just missed it. Even though it was the good stuff, and even though I was in my early 20s, I had so much more fucking up to do.
Yeah.
But at the time, I remember definitely thinking like, those damn kids, like,
Yeah.
but this thing that was like kind of missing it. Like, I kind of want to be one of those damn kids.
But also, all those kids were all so fucked up.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't think I was allowed to see that film, actually. I think my parents definitely did not want me to see that film. And we all went, snuck in with our fake IDs to Angelica and caught it.
Was it? I guess it was R-rated or whatever.
No, it was NC-17.
Was it really?
Yeah, because of the sex scenes.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
We've all been so the computers and the porn is just
Yeah,
completely like what was
like-
possibly offensive.
That would be rated R now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, topically, it's challenging.
But growing up in New York City was it had aspects of that. Like chilling on stoops and going to house parties and just really summer in the city was the best. Breaking into swimming pools and all that kind of stuff.
That's real.
That's real. That definitely went down. Riding BMXs, skateboarding down at the Brooklyn Bank, stuff like that.
So you said both your parents were creative. Your father's a painter and your mother was
She's a photographer.
Yeah. Was kind of were they what sort of work were they doing? Was it like were they struggling or
no? Like my father still right now is very successful. And he's 80 years old and he's doing well. I mean, he's permanent collection in MoMA, Guggenheim, and same with my mother. So they went from really struggling, having me in the 80s, no money, just working really hard, both professors. And then once I kind of hit my teenage years, they also had a boom successfully with their work, which is great. Mm-hmm. And it kind of fucked me up in a way, though, because I saw them doing well by doing abstract art and non-commercial work and thinking, oh, I can make a living like that, too. And that was my goal.
Yeah. Was there a sense that what they were doing was challenging? Like,
no, it seemed like, oh, that's normal.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like my dad would spray like giant tar on canvases that were, 10 feet tall, 10 feet wide. And I'd think, oh, I can do that. Oh, okay. So if I want to make like an ambient record, it'll get signed and I'll make a living off of it. And that's like graduating college. I was doing that. Like at Bard, I studied with people like Bob Bilecki and Richard Teitelbaum, who were core early electronic music pioneers. And they would teach us stuff like Stockhausen and, like John Cage and really make me step away from wanting to produce tracks like drum and bass and house and techno. So it was very confusing when I graduated. I thought, oh, okay, I can do anything. But
so at what point did you kind of realize, like, at what point did that facade kind of melt away? And I guess I mean, there's two thoughts. There's at what point did you realize, like, oh no, like most people don't get big paychecks for this. This doesn't really afford you a big loft in Tribeca, even by 70s rates or whatever.
Yeah, because that's the thing too, is like the lifestyle. My father was just lucky. He got that place so early that we had that and we were able to live that way.
Yeah, it was probably a horrible place when
it was exactly. Yeah. It was really dangerous. But then when my uptown friends would come downtown to my place, they'd be like, "Whoa, what is this? Cool?" And I thought, "Well, no, this is normal. Everybody lives in a loft, right?" This is yeah. It wasn't glamorous the way it is now, where like condos are built like fake lofts. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but what about? I mean, at what point were you aware that there was mass culture? Also, like, because I feel like where I came from, where it was when you're kind of a slightly off teen in Detroit, and I'm not saying I was that off. Like I knew about Nirvana 6 months before everyone fucking knew about Nirvana. Yeah. Like it wasn't that far gone, but there was still a sense of like you were a weirdo and you were going against the mainstream. I would imagine that would be less obvious if you're completely growing up in that world and completely immersed in it.
Yeah, definitely, because the music also that was being played in my house was like Johnny Burnett and Gene Vincent and not Elvis, and then like Philip Glass, but like that, like obscure classical. Yeah. So we weren't listening to Madonna and stuff, and whatever was pop culture at the time. So I didn't really know about what was popular, what was underground, and how something underground could become successful or what. I didn't know that these were
the clear dichotomy. That would be that seems weird to me because so much.
It's weird.
I think for most people, so much of what they appreciate about it is by definition it being an outsider thing.
And that you're rebelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would go to Italy a lot during the summer because I'm half Italian. And I actually then took a huge liking to terrible 90s dance music, like Euro dance. Like, this is the rhythm of the night, like that.
Which is, that's like the best of it. Like,
which is the best, but
deep into the bad.
But then all my friends were like, ugh, why are you listening to this? Like, we're listening to Nirvana. And I'm like, no, this is amazing. Like, reel to reel, this is sick. What is this? Like, what are these beats? Which is funny. So I kind of took a liking to the poppier stuff then because I was growing up with such obscure underground stuff.
So I guess it's true that you
always
rebel against something.
You always rebel.
So okay, so your high school is like, mid to late 90s. Probably about a little late 90s, I guess.
Late 90s.
You come, where were you at the Millennium?
I was at Bard College.
Okay.
Yeah. And graduated in 2003. So coming down, we were driving to the city every weekend and such. But really into raves and
right.
Especially in upstate New York during that time, there was a whole blossoming of that, where there were a lot of warehouse spaces upstate and like New Paltz and Saucony and random spots.
I know nothing of this. I feel like
it's weird, right?
You know about like the early 90s stuff in New York.
Like
Frankie
Storm
Bones and
Raves.
Storm Raves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then like the club stuff kind of perpetuated the Twilight or whatever.
Absolutely. And I was going to all those in the 90s and then missed it when you're kind of in this secluded college. You get bored and you want you want to have parties and
yeah, I forget that growing up in Detroit, like I always like.
I mean, that's pretty lucky.
Yeah, sure. And that one, and I was thinking about this earlier today. Like, I got serious into the techno scene around like 95, 96. That was when it like clicked. And you just did an eye roll. I was like, oh, so amazing. Like, so like, oh, to have been there.
Yeah.
I will always feel like I'm not quite old school enough because I wasn't there in 94, 93, or 92.
Totally.
But then it could have been I actually was there. Like, I think the first time I actually saw Richie Houghton DJ was at a bingo hall 30 minutes from East Lansing, which is where I went to school, Michigan State. And I was like, and it was just a mix of, whatever weirdos and oddballs and, lived in East Lansing. It was, a bunch of guys that played in bands. I was playing in a band at the time, a bunch of indie rockers and, mixed with like the few, 2 or 3 ravers who were in my dorm were there. And, and I can go back a little farther than that, but it took a few years for it to really like kind of all click and be like, oh, okay, so this is happening and this is the scene. And now I'm sounding like an LCD Sound System song. But
no, but that is amazing. I mean, we did have the Storm Raves and Frankie Bones and Adam X, Heather Hart. I was going to all that.
Mm-hmm. You must have been really young.
I was young. I was 14, 15.
Yeah, I also put the caveat that I didn't get it until I think it was the summer I turned 20. Mm-hmm. Like I kind of I dabbled around like I think the first touch of it was at 16, and then like by 18 there was stuff going on, and then basically my girlfriend became a raver and broke up with me, and I was just like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Crawled deeper into my indie rock, Fugazi loving world for a few years as it, slowly crept around again. So it knocked me back, a couple years, I think.
Yeah.
Before. So which on one hand I was I've always said it's probably good that I didn't dive right in when I was that young. By 20 you have a bit more of a sense of, of self and, kind of a sense of like, I probably can't do this every weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I don't actually know how I afforded to do that almost every weekend as a teenager.
That's a good point.
I always think about this. This is something that we commonly look back on now. Like friends of mine who I used to go to raves with, and we're still friends now. And we're all in our 30s, and we're like, how did we afford to go? And because some of those tickets were like, there's no guest list to the rave.
Right.
When we were kids,
That was more expensive. I think drugs were more expensive.
I don't understand how it went down.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like,
You also weren't
I had
paying,
odd
you also
jobs
weren't
here
paying,
and
you al-
there.
and you also weren't paying rent.
wasn't paying rent,
Which
which helps. I had odd jobs working at like shelving records at Breakbeat and stuff.
Yeah, you weren't spending $100 a month on a cell phone.
Yeah, true too.
You know.
I was spending 99 cents a month on a beeper.
Right. That would have been the time. So okay, so you're doing like the storm raves in New York, and I don't know why I'm trying to put a linear thing on this.
No, definitely.
It's not required.
No, but I don't always look back on the linear aspect of the music, the progression.
So, but we talked about so then you did school and you came back, and it's now like
2003.
2003. So you weren't in the city for 9/11.
No, I was actually I was at school.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
I was
I'm
at
sure
school
you clearly
and
saw
it was insane. I mean, we had projectors everywhere in the large auditoriums, projecting the news, and literally just remember I had an early class that morning. I had an anthropology class, and it was like everybody scrambling on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
A plane crashing the Pentagon. They hit the towers. Like, there's another tower falling down. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Get at what? This is madness. And they projected the news, and you could see all of Lower Manhattan in this huge
Just
smoke.
in smoke, yeah.
And first thing I thought was, my parents are dead.
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone I know down there is gone.
It definitely.
What do I
seemed
do?
like that, yeah.
What the fuck? How do I get there? How do I need to go there?
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. Even though I saw this disaster, I wanted to go there to make sure that the people that I cared about were okay.
Right.
I was willing to put myself in that disaster. And the phone lines were insane. Couldn't call. And then the principal was allowing people who had family living there and it proved on their ID that they lived in that radius.
Lower Manhattan.
We could call. And I finally got through to my parents. And they were all right. And they were leaving, going to our friend in Connecticut's house. Like, it was madness. I mean, they saw them fall, too.
Yeah.
They were running away. And yeah, I mean, it's sad. I had a lot of friends who lost family. And it was crazy.
Yeah.
That whole experience, I think, really changed New York also in a good and both bad way.
It absolutely changed. Well, it changed everything. But
everything.
It really changed New York.
The creative vibe,
yeah.
energy of New York changed a lot.
Yeah. And I imagine it's, it really has to do something to a generation, a whole generation, but specifically, it comes out to creative people, an entire generation of creative people who know people who died, who know that kind of, catastrophe. Like, I think you kind of saw that, like the early 80s when you had when AIDS wiped out so much of the club community.
Absolutely.
And then those who survived kind of have this experience, and then you saw it again, after 9/11, where an entire generation of New York creatives have this shared, mourning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I remember also a lot of people being friendlier and and treating the city more like a community around then. But at the same time, we also had such a crackdown on crime and even nightclubs in general.
Yeah.
Everything all happened at once. And I feel like that put a taint on the creative energy in New York as well.
Well, there was. I mean, I was still in Detroit, running a club there, and we definitely. I mean, everyone felt the reverberations. For a year, nobody wanted to go out.
Yeah.
Like, everyone just wanted to stay home.
Yeah.
And do nothing.
Yeah.
But there was already kind of this turning. You had Y2K, and you had just kind of the decline of the electronica boom. And all these things where everything was like up through the 90s, and then the millennium hit and it just crashed. And then 9/11 just really slammed the door shut on a lot of things.
Slam dunk.
But I remember hearing I guess the quintessential record, like for me, the crossover was like, the first time I heard the Strokes record, and you're like, there's nothing, all this do we've been just ingesting for years and years, and it was like, okay, hold on, let's refocus.
Yeah, it's crazy you bring up the Strokes. That actually had a huge impact on me. Mm-hmm. Because it also took this whole attitude of the tech boom and everything's fancy and glamorous and crazy, and they just kind of stripped everything down. We're playing instruments and we're not going to go wild on stage. Mm-hmm. We're just going to stand here and we're going to play music, and I'm going to sing pretty monotone, and I'm going to do this and be cool and calm.
Right.
And confident.
Yeah. It was all very James Dean.
It was very, yeah.
So then you moved back to the city, I guess. Just give you a little bit of bio,
back.
Like how you kind of went from after school and started building.
Yeah. So at school, I was making a bunch of music and sending it to labels all over the place, not really knowing what I was doing. I didn't really know about genres and such and subgenres, and I was very influenced by Aphex Twin, but then I also loved drum and bass, and I loved ambient stuff like Autechra and IDM and all that stuff. And literally, I was just wild carding and sending these demos out from school. And then when I graduated, I got a job in post-production and doing graphics.
Okay.
Totally cheated my way into this job. Did not know how to use After Effects or anything. Just totally lied, said I was good, spent overtime hours teaching myself how to do it, and would use all their equipment to burn like crazy DVDs, silks, screen the DVDs, make really nice demos, and send these crazy packages on their account to all the labels. So I would get responses, because it would look a lot fancier than anything else. I'd do weird things like vacuum seal things and big bubbles, and yeah. And so Miguel, Kid 606, who ran Tiger Beat 6, hit me up and said, I want to put some music out. And then Toby Scud, who ran Ambush, was like, I want to put some music out. And all these labels started hitting me back. I didn't know that an underground label, going back, wasn't going to pay the bills. And I just thought, oh, amazing, quit my job. I'm going to be famous. I've done it. Mom, Dad, I'm putting music out. I'm going to become a musician. And they were like, well, what are they paying you in advance? What? No, they're pressing vinyl. It's sick. I got these crazy, one track is 200 BPM, chopped up, random classical music. And then another one is just an ambient track. Another one's drill and bass track. And they're like, what? Are they going to play it on the radio? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if they do. And it was awesome, though, because then I met all these amazing people, and then I started to tour through these releases and freelanced on the side doing motion graphic stuff so I could make money.
Right. Because you quickly became
evident. Because I quickly became evident, you don't make a living off of selling 400 copies of vinyl.
Yeah. Yeah. And even
that are hand stamped.
When you're gigging that kind of music.
When you're gigging that kind of music, you're making
lucky to make $200 or
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Enough to get you to the next city.
Yeah. But very quickly, 2005, Kid 606 took me on tour. Mm-hmm. And he was really blowing up at that point. And New York Times were hyping him up. And he was kind of breaking the rules, sampling Kylie Minogue and not giving a shit and putting distortion on it and releasing it out on CD, vinyl, everything, playing it on, his songs were playing on the radio, but it was sampling a popular song at the time. And that punk attitude, I really related to that growing up, listening to things like Fugazi. And similar also to Jungle, where they would just sample a hip hop record and not give a fuck and put it out. So I had that mentality that I really understood. And we toured for a good 2 years, and that really got my name out, I think. Mm-hmm. And he really helped. And I'm pretty sure he would just give me a portion of his fees, just for the fun of it,
just to make it
just
a little
to
more,
make it a little more
sustainable for you.
And sustainable for me, because I was making a good, couple hundred, 300 a gig there. But I'm talking, we did worldwide, which was amazing for me. and I just didn't live anywhere for 2 years, for good up until 2007. And then by 2007, I moved back to New York, and I started really getting into grime and dubstep and like the 4/4 UK bassline sound, and mixing that with the electro sound of US and Bloghouse. I say that cringing,
Wow.
but it did really launch my career because I just would make these mashup tunes, these bootlegs, something popular, put a crazy wobble bass line. Not a lot of people were doing it at the time, like me, AC Slater, Jack Beats,
Yeah, it was
Zinc.
a small,
It was a very
consistent-
small group. Rico Tubbs. Yeah, it was this really small group of us, and we all happened to really click and be friends because we shared this similar sound.
Right. You said you moved back to New York. So we talked about this thing before we started recording. You lived in Berlin.
Yeah,
briefly.
so then with all this touring, I hit Berlin. A friend of mine, Matt Shadetech, who was part of Team Shadetech, had moved out here. He was writing a column for the German Vice, a grime column. And we had really bonded over grime. And I'm talking grime like when it wasn't called grime yet. This is like, you'd have white labels from Plastic Man when he was, sorry, now he's called Plastician, but not the Hot and Plastic Man, but at the time it was
Which
Plastic
is still one of
Man.
the most mind-blowing. That was so weird when that happened. And everyone kind of looked at each
Like,
other. And
what?
Then you found out like the dude was like 17. And you're like,
Yeah, he was so young.
so maybe he didn't know. But someone at Reflex had to know.
I know, like
that
someone must have known.
There's already this really iconic electronic musician calling himself Plastic Man.
I know.
But anyway.
The music that was happening at the time, and like that grime compilation that came out at Reflex, was really exciting to me. So I really took to that, and I was really inspired by that sound, that UK sound of instrumental grime.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, so Matt Shadetech was living in Berlin, and I came and I met a girl, and yada yada. One thing led to another. I lived here for a year, and after a year, I just thought, oh man, I gotta go back to New York. I can't handle the winter in Berlin. I can't. It's too much, and I need to like change. I need to change something. And I was also living completely illegally.
Oh, it's a visa.
Yeah, without a visa or anything, which slowly became difficult. But yeah, when I went back to New York, we threw this party called Bangers and Mash and started Trouble and Bass. And that really also took off. It kind of created a community in New York where I met Star Eyes, who was working at Accelerator at the time. She was doing Syrup Girls, and she loved grime and UK music, and we had the exact same taste. Like, loved punk, loved goth, loved industrial, loved rave music, loved techno, loved drum and bass. And we were like, let's start a crew, let's start a party, let's do this. And that really kind of took off for us in New York then.
So, and that was at Studio B?
Yeah, so we started at Boogaloo, which was an after-hours coke den.
Okay.
Under the JMZ tracks. And that was crazy. That held maybe 200 people, and we would go after the hours, late, like 9, 10 in the morning, Sweatbox. And with like Zach Shadetech and Math Head. And we all just played whatever we wanted. It was a mishmash. Because at the time, it was like techno wasn't cool.
Not at all. Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I would go and see the Bunker, go to the Bunker parties and stuff. But there was like 50
when they were
people
at Subtonic.
Yeah. Like no one was there.
Yeah.
It was a family vibe. And we loved that, but then we also loved the grime parties. Then we also even loved hip hop. But no party was mixing it all together. And we thought, I don't care. Do you care? I don't care. Let's mix it. If it matches, if the beat matches, let's do it. And so we would mix like, Trick Daddy with like a Dizzy Rascal instrumental. Stuff like that.
I feel like that was there was definitely a moment when all these scenes were kind of popping up all over the country, and each one had a little bit of its own flavor. Like, the LA scene I think had a little more kind of pop sheen to it. I remember I was doing a party with Frankie Chan and Steve Aoki in 2005.
Yep.
Yeah, it was actually the first one was my 30th birthday. Yeah, I celebrated my 30th birthday by kicking off a party, DJing with Steve and Frankie. I think She Wants Revenge was their first, played their first show inside at the venue, and it was a whole thing. But it definitely had this pop thing, and starlets would come through, and little things like that. I remember DJing, and right at the table next to me is Devin Aoki sitting there with Chad Hugo from the Neptunes, and I'm like, I'm totally gonna try to play Susie and the Banshees right now because I just I when you get to that kind of situation, I only know how to respond by being reverting to what's the most ridiculous fucked up thing I could do, and because otherwise if I'm actually trying to impress somebody in any way, I know it's just gonna suck.
That's so true though. I remember that in LA. It was definitely that vibe. Yeah. Yeah. And then New York had this, slightly more, kind of gritty thing. Yeah,
you had
grittier.
the whole coming from the, you had the DFA stuff, and there was just this thing, kind of the Midwest, and the guys in Chicago and Detroit, a lot of them are really in the goth industrial stuff. So there was some of that energy there, and it felt like every place had a little bit of its own thing.
It's really true.
And then, then we'd all go to Miami for Winter Music Conference. It was always just, no matter what, it always just felt bizarre.
Man. There was a period then also where we would do these tours that Scion would do. And they would mash us all up, which was amazing. That's something I'll never forget. Those are some of my favorite tours. And they would do midweek tours, and we'd play in the small city, the what do they call the B city? The C?
Yeah, the B markets.
The B markets.
Yeah, the secondary markets.
The secondary markets where, Oklahoma City doesn't get me mixed with Frankie Chan and Style of Eye and, Spank Rock.
Right.
So we're going to bring them all together and boom. And it was awesome. That was crazy. Those were...
Yeah, the Scion Road. It's funny because when I moved to LA in 2003 to work at Herb, that was Herb was basically, or the marketing arm Rebel was running all the Scion stuff, and it was more they were doing the underground hip hop thing where it would be panels of Scions painted by famous graffiti artists, and J-Lib is gonna perform the only show they ever did, and then there was a big gang fight kind of thing in the parking lot. And I was like, this is the week I moved to LA. Yeah. It was insane, being dropped into this whole thing. It's interesting to see to kind of take it off a little bit. I've seen a couple of those kind of marketing things that define eras as much as anything. I was a Camel cigarette guy in 1998, hitting all the techno clubs and everything in Detroit, and having all this money to throw parties with DJs and that kind of corporate sponsorship. Then you had the Scion really defined, if one brand I guess defined. Yeah,
for the U.S., I think they had a huge hand in that, defining a scene.
Yeah, it was that and Sparks. And
Sparks. Wow. Oh my God, that orange tongue.
Dude, we used to call
Oh no.
We used to call it getting thwunk.
Thwunk?
Because I swear, something would happen when you would drink Sparks where
I wasn't a normal drunk.
You're right. No. You'd be halfway through the first can and your mind is still functioning completely normal, you feel half a beer in.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden you can't talk.
You have a numb.
Yeah, you have the orange tongue, and you can't, and you're slurring your words, even though you still feel completely lucid. And we used to go, getting thwunk on Sparks.
Thwunk on Sparks. There was also the Black Sparks. This happened towards the end before they banned it. It's done.
Well, that's what I thought.
Or did it go out of business?
But a buddy of mine just posted a buddy of mine from Minnesota. It was back home visiting family, don't and he posted a photo. Holding a can of Sparks, and everyone's just Throwback Thursday, and he's like, "No, this is happening right now."
Wow.
So I guess maybe someone bought the
back stock or something
or they bought the brand and they figure they can still put it in it's not even secondary market. It's like fourth tier gas stations in Minnesota.
Sparks. Yeah, that was. Those were some crazy years.
Yeah.
I mean, I will admit a lot of it is a blur, because I literally was on tour so much that you get on this like autopilot mode, and it wasn't until 2 years ago that It wasn't until after all the Vegas residencies and the just cloudiness of the party that 2 years ago I pumped the brakes and was like, well, let me reevaluate what I want to do musically. Right.
Did you do the Vegas thing?
Yeah, I used to have a residency at Marquee.
Wow.
Yeah, but all right. So let me explain a little. I got a little bit tired of the boom, 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 banging electro, hard, what's now considered EDM or whatever. I got a little tired of it. And I missed the fact that I went to music school and played guitar my entire life, and I haven't touched an instrument once. I mean, I've always incorporated my voice and sang on songs, but I really missed that organic sound and quality of making music using instruments. So I started to go back into my rockabilly roots and incorporating that into my production and playing rockabilly in my sets. And at the time in Vegas, they were like, all right, we want you to be the weird guy that plays the rockabilly. And I would do edits and stuff. And it was great. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And I did that for like a couple years. But then trap and EDM got really hype. And I started getting booked with artists who were straight up playing like festival trap.
Yeah.
And I'd be headlining, and it would be like, and then I'd be like, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. People are like, what? Huh? I don't get this. And also, like, the age demographic had changed. Now the people that knew what rockabilly was now they don't know what that is.
Right.
Like, their parents don't even listen to that. Like,
that's grandparents.
Their yeah,
literally.
So these kids in my gigs who used to love it because their parents listened to it or whatnot. Now these kids who are like 13, 14 at an all-age party are like, what? What is this music? Yeah. So then instead of making trap, I decided to make a rockabilly band. and tour with that. And it was a lot of fun. We did that for, a year and a half.
Okay.
As Drop the Lime live.
Right.
And I released an album on Ultra. And we did it was crazy and lots of videos.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I kind of, because I left the States 4 years ago. I've been in Berlin for 4 years. And I'm moving back to LA in less than 2 weeks. Yeah. So I'm realizing I kind of gotta pop my head up and
different scenes.
What did I miss?
There's a lot of things that didn't even really pop over to Europe.
Yeah, like trap.
Vice versa.
I was back. I was back in LA for a few months in the spring, doing some work and making the decision. And I remember, I was working with Raymond Roker, who I used to, founder of Herb, who I worked with for years on the magazine, and he's over at Coachella now and brought me on for some projects. And he was playing. I was like, you know what, trap. Completely missed it.
Don't know what it is.
Zero. Might as well be Scandinavian folk music. It's
not really here.
Right. It's really not.
And especially not in Berlin.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's one club that Gretchen tries to do it.
Okay.
But that place it's such a shitty venue.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it just doesn't it's Berlin. There's 50 parties every Saturday.
Yeah.
All with house and techno.
Yeah, exactly.
It does one thing really, really well.
And the other thing is the parties in Berlin last so much longer than, let's say, LA. So you're going to hear 15 hours of house or techno. That's fine. 15 hours of trap? No, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah.
That's not gonna. No.
Nobody could.
Nobody.
Maybe a 14-year-old on his first Molly could handle.
First one. Oh my God, this is amazing. Will it ever stop? But that's torture. 15 hours of trap.
Yeah. I mean, for me, 15 minutes of trap is torture.
Don't get me started.
I might have to. Yeah. I realize I'm gonna have to kind of adapt and.
There's elements. There's elements of everything that is tolerant.
I felt that way about drum and bass back in the day. Like I could go, like I went to one good drum and bass party. It was Concrete Jungle in New York.
That was actually the first party I ever DJ'd at.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, this would have been 98, 97, 98. And it was like, I think Darrow was like the resident.
Yeah, of course.
It was just all these like, cool, hot girls in fashion school and total like, artsy vibes like, and whatever. And
Liquid Sky, Final Home. Yeah.
And I was like, this is amazing. And I came back to Detroit and me and my buddy wanted to do, we got to do a drum and bass party. And there were no one had ever done one in Detroit. I think like one guy had done one, but it just wasn't happening. Yeah. And so we got, a club to give us like the second room. Well, like actually Frankie Bones was in the big room and they were like, you guys can, do the second room, do whatever you want. Like we know we're going to fill the club anyways. We don't care. We like you guys. We spent like a couple $100 of our own money on decoration. We weren't making a dime.
Yeah.
Asked a couple techno friends to play drum and bass because there were no drum and bass DJs. And it was like 20 minutes and I was like,
I can't do this.
Can I stick to this music? And this crowd is really ugly and this is not the cool, sexy New York drum and bass scene. This is like, it was wiggers. Like, no nice way to put it. Downriver, blue collar, not that,
Neck tattoos.
Well, nobody had neck tattoos. It was 98.
That's true.
Nobody had neck tattoos, but now everybody has neck tattoos,
Everyone's got neck tattoos now.
Yeah, but you have a decent.
I've got a decent amount of tattoos, but I don't know. It's got to be a good tattoo on your neck. It can't be your only tattoo.
Well, no, there was something just on
something somewhere.
Jezebel or something where some girl wanted to go get a neck tattoo and she didn't have any other tattoos and I'm really lucky that I didn't have the balls to get tattooed when I was like 16, 17, 18. Mm-hmm. Because I'd have a fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers son on my arm. Like there's no other, like I would have that. I'd probably have like a Nirvana thing down here. Like
lyrics.
There were no good tattoo decisions made when I was of the age that tattoos became an option. I remember I had a friend. It's like the one kid in my suburban high school who his parents were like, no, you got to go. And so he was living in this house and kind of the cool, edgy suburb of Detroit, with this out of work tattoo artist who had the setup in the basement.
Oh no!
And I would go over there, and it's just these skate kids and punk kids, or just passing the hepatitis around.
Oh god!
And I didn't even know, it didn't even occur to me, hygiene. It just occurred to me, no fucking way.
No.
And I literally I knew exactly how long the cable was for the gun. And I was like, if I would I'd be like, no,
I'm good.
I'm staying outside.
I'm gonna stay over
of
here.
You can't get to me.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I didn't get my first tattoo until I was 22.
Mm-hmm. So it's a bit more of a.
So I have 0 tattoos that I regret.
Yeah.
And they're all done by very close friends, good tattoo artists.
I think that makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. I've got friends or maybe girls I've dated that they all have one tattoo.
Mm-hmm. That is
like the horseshoe on the lower back or something. Yeah.
The Jerry Bear on the calf.
Man, the Jerry Bear.
That's also that might be dating myself a little bit. That was the whammy when I was in college.
Yeah.
In the mid '90s.
What's a big Yeah,
what are the whammy tattoos?
That's a tough one. I think the Red Hot Chili Peppers one is good.
That's but at this point,
this point,
that's just dad rock.
At this point, are people getting
I don't think so. I wouldn't. I guess I wouldn't really know. There's gotta be probably a million dead mouse tattoos.
That's what I was gonna say. Is there someone getting the dead mouse?
Yeah, there's gotta be. There's gotta be huge
mouse head,
back
giant
pieces.
back pieces.
Yeah,
Epic,
epic, bro.
Rave lasers.
Yeah,
green.
It's probably just gotten more ridiculous.
Because I do remember people getting justice tattoos, which I thought was hilarious. It's you're just getting a cross.
Yeah.
You're getting.
Yeah, there was one particular kid who must have lived in L.A. because every time Justice would come through, there would end up being photos of like him with Justice, like showing up. Like I
showing
swear
a
there was
big
like
back piece.
more than once. Like they went, oh yeah, it's the back tattoo guy.
Yeah.
You know, and those guys like it felt it was like I guess 2007.
Yeah, it was 2007
when the whole like French thing was happening, and it's like I swear that everyone just lived in L.A. Like,
yeah,
you couldn't go 2 weeks without, you know, Busy P or Justice or somebody playing here, playing there.
I should actually probably mention that. The Curses, which I'm focusing on more now, actually was in 2007, and it was because of all those French guys.
Yeah.
And I released on Institutubes and like Sirkin and Para One's label, and they really took me. I was the only non-French dude. Like maybe like Henry Riton was part of that crew too, but everyone was French, and they really brought me under their wing, which is amazing.
Yeah, I was thinking about kind of you know, cause I guess probably because I'm getting ready to go back to LA, so I'm kind of like remembering all that stuff, and like that was huge. Like the whole like you know, I was at Daft Punk.
Yeah.
You know, when they played Coachella in 2006. I don't know if you caught that new book that came out, that The Underground is Massive.
Yeah.
I was interviewed for that, and it literally, the author Matos used my story of being in a porta potty, like looking out the little vent as the curtain came up and the pyramid appeared.
That's amazing.
And it's like this is how I'm going down in history. It's like I had slammed too many vodka Red Bulls and ran across the and I had to piss.
Oh man!
Like, guys, wait up!
Wait, just give me out.
And so it's like, yeah. So the way he sets it up, it's like, you know, Steve Aoki's in the crowd, and you know, Tom Windish is backstage, and you know, all these kind of characters that appear throughout the book, and you know, just kind of throughout the history of the music in America. And then it's like cuts to me slamming Red Bull vodka, pissing in a porta potty when Daft Punk unveiled the pyramid.
It's like, that's
it. Like, it's been written. Like, that's
magical moment in history. Magical moment in history.
Like, that's it. That's you know, I was at the first DMF in Detroit, and I was in the porta potty.
But at least you still were able to peek through.
And literally.
At least you could still see that pyramid.
And I literally said, like, I clearly remember this, and I'm not the type of person who talks to himself out loud. It's all in my head. And I literally just went, robots.
That was epic, though.
Yeah, and it changed everything.
It changed the whole performance of electronic music.
Mm-hmm. And at least
changed it all.
And in LA, all of a sudden, it was like the French guys, and you know,
it
really like that was the point when like people like Steve and Frankie start to learn to mix.
Yeah.
Because it was all of a sudden it was like, okay, we need to play this 4/4 music.
Yeah.
Like overnight, it became 4/4, and then like you talked about the moshing started.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was probably when I checked out.
Right.
Like I had this very consistent curve of being like on, with the plan until that like 2007, 2008. And that was when I just kind of, also like, I think like, I got married around that time. I kind of like, was settling in and, just everything was calcifying. Plus, Herb was on its way out, like every other magazine.
Yeah, every print.
So I was out of this, I no longer had this like daily mandate to stay up on it.
Yeah.
And, I remember going to see like Mastercraft and being like, the first time I thought they were great. It was a warehouse downtown. And I loved it because they were playing old Green Velvet records. Mm-hmm. I was like, nobody's playing this. Like, none of these kids have heard this. And awesome. But then by the time we got to the real, like, just the analog.
Grindy, yeah.
That was kind of when I like faded into the sunset.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that stuff.
Man. That was... When you checked out, is kind of when I checked in. we swapped rooms.
Yeah, right?
No, like, because that's definitely when, I was playing at, like, Avalon a lot, then in LA a lot.
Was Control, yeah. That party still goes on, right?
Party still goes on.
That's amazing. Yeah. Like, I was kind of going through RA, just looking at like what's, because I'm aware that LA has more stuff now than it did.
Yes.
When I left, and more stuff with to my taste, and I'm aware that Uber has totally revolutionized how people go out.
Yeah.
But I was flipping through the RA events, and I was like Control, and I was like, oh, that party, but then I'm like, wait, no, that's gotta be going on 10 years.
Yeah, really long time.
So which is
Really long.
kind of amazing. And I can probably safely say I'll never go to.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been back.
But
I was there playing a lot.
So and now you're in Berlin.
Yeah, and now I'm in Berlin.
As of just a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, well, a few months.
A few months, okay.
It's been on and off for 6 months because I was deciding whether or not to live in London or Berlin.
Right.
But I definitely needed new inspiration, different from New York. I just, I don't know. I love New York City. I'll always wear it on my sleeve, and I know I'll always return at some point.
Right.
But it is so money-driven, and everyone creative is being pushed out. I hate to sound like that guy, but it's true.
Well, at some points, it's reality.
It's reality.
Yeah.
And the neighborhoods that I would live in, and the restaurants I loved, and the coffee shops and the bars, there's replicas of all the originals. There's replicas that are making a cheaper, not price-wise, but cheaper quality food, cheaper quality coffee, but making it look like it's, first class. And
that's interesting because
I
feel like food's the one thing
cutter,
that New York still has.
I know, but it breaks my heart. But at the same time, it could just be a personal decision. I'm bored of the nightlife, and I wanted something new. And
yeah, do you still?
Berlin excites me.
You're looking for new nightlife.
Yeah,
you're still chasing the dragon.
I'm still chasing it.
Me too.
I want new. I want to be challenged. I want to be excited. I want to hear something and go, "What the fuck is that? Come on, what is that?"
When was the last time that happened?
The last time that happened, Nils Fram.
Okay, yeah.
Nils Fram did that to me. And a few years ago, Tangerine Dream.
Okay. Which is actually both completely not nightlife.
Not dance, not nightlife.
Not dance music, not going out.
But that music somehow inspires me to make dance music.
Okay.
It's weird. It's the energy of it.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, everyone in the 90s and even the 80s, like everyone name checked Tangerine Dream.
Yeah.
And then Nils Fram seems to have, very much ingratiated himself with, the electron, the
in it,
the club heads.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the it's the music you listened to before, like the later or midweek, and it's great stuff.
You know who recently as a DJ set really blew me away was Motor City Drum Ensemble.
That's so funny. I
not down.
I feel like, and I've seen him a few times, and it's like always like every time it's been a Panorama bar, so it's definitely not the venue.
I was at About Blank.
Okay.
Daytime.
Yeah.
Open air.
I saw him once in the garden at Berghain.
Yeah.
And then like twice, and it's just
no, not your cup of tea.
That's it's totally my cup of tea.
Oh.
But I felt like for all the hype, I was like, I know these records.
Okay.
Which is just that part. That's partially just the curse of, doing this for so long.
It's the curse of having good taste.
Thank you.
It is.
Thank you. I'll take that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and plus there was a little thing between a buddy of mine DJing and his cranky girlfriend and weird set time.
Okay, the good old diva.
Yeah, and I look back and I'm like, I think my friend overreacted. And it wasn't the DJ friend; it was the DJ friend's friend who totally overreacted. But you just everything amplifies on social media, and next thing you know, you and everyone you talk to is like, that bro's a dick.
He's a dick.
And I'm like, probably not.
Maybe he's not.
And maybe it's, it was like a Sunday afternoon. God knows where he had been, flown in from. And
could have been a cranky night.
Yeah, and I don't think it was him. I think it was the girl he was with. And
the reason why I bring him up is even though growing up in New York with DFA and all of that, and disco, Italo is really prominent, I never took to it. I was never down.
Okay.
Okay? I was never down. I was actually repulsed by it. I hated when the vocals would come in on disc. I just didn't like it. And it really turned me off. And he changed my opinion.
Okay.
Because he mixed it with, some maybe old Detroit or some Manchester kind of acid thing. And
right.
the way he mixed these records with more modern records. It changed my
And that's
opinion.
cool. I mean, that's the definition.
That's the definition of a good DJ.
Yeah, that's
But maybe if I knew all the records, of course he's gonna play that.
that's totally
Oh, jeez.
kind of how I felt about it. But yeah, there's
Charivari? Oh, come on now. Again?
pretty much no. Yes, it's absolutely.
Yes.
I really don't ever need to hear Charivari. At a
Even
club.
I know. You don't play Charivari, especially not in Berlin.
Right.
No.
Although I'm trying to think if I've
When was the
heard
last time you heard it?
Yeah, this is true.
Or what's that? Ice
Baby.
No. Ice bar? I forget.
I don't know. Yeah.
This is being recorded. Me
Yeah.
forgetting.
That's,
Me being recorded, forgetting the name of the tune.
well, it's
Iceberg.
Iceberg. Maybe I just don't know.
Iceberg
it.
lettuce.
Maybe I just. Or I don't have that DJ autism.
No,
Like, I know.
yeah.
Like I don't know the names and the producers of how. Like I like this track and this is
No,
I don't have that.
I'm terrible
really.
at that.
So people all the time will like reference a record and I'll be like,
What?
then they go, it's one of those. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing.
No, I'm terrible at that. And especially now that I don't play vinyl anymore. It's been years. I knew a record by the weird sleeve and color. I
Sure.
didn't know the name.
Yeah.
And so
A lot of it didn't even have names.
it didn't even have it. Yeah. And so now I'm playing on USBs. I'm actually finally knowing the track titles.
That's true.
It's actually
forcing
good.
you to.
Forcing me to be like, because I got to scroll through this little thing. I can't.
Yeah. Has that affected how you play?
It's definitely affected how I play because you have more options.
Yeah.
But I think it's also hurt because when you have vinyl, you're limited. You have to play with what you have.
Yeah.
So I try to keep that in mind and not put like 5,000 tracks on a USB. Like,
Yeah, that's what I always said.
because I never have sets either. So, the less you have, the more you can do with the
What do you
less
mean you don't have sets?
I don't have sets. Like, I don't go to the club thinking,
Oh, I'm gonna play
this and then this and then this.
Yeah.
I have, like.
So do
certain-
you have gigs lined up like in Berlin? Are you?
Yeah. I'm playing tonight at Arena Club.
Oh, okay.
And I had just played Beats and Boats
Ah,
with Heidi
okay.
and Boris Duglash, and that was awesome.
That was last weekend.
That was last weekend.
I
In
never
Palmer.
did the Beats and Boats
so
thing.
Fun, so good.
It's the first time I ever went to Winter Music Conference. I had been out all night, and I got back to the hotel just in time to run into some people who were on their way to a boat party.
Oh, here we go.
And it was like this older guy who was like the veteran who taught us all how to do everything. He's actually half the furniture in his flat is his because he left Berlin right when I came to Berlin. So it's
okay.
like that's why I have vases.
Yeah.
I have the flat of a 48-year-old gay man because he left me all his stuff.
That's amazing.
But I was like, cool, boat party, yeah, all right, cool, yeah. And he just looked at me and was like, go to bed. And it's something about.
Ouch.
He's like, you don't want to know because you can't get off.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great idea now. It might sound like a great idea in 30 minutes when we take off. In an hour, when
You
it's
can't
not
leave.
a great idea, you can't get off. And you do not have it in you to do, like, look at you.
So you.
And it put the fear of God of boat parties into me to the point where I've maybe been on 2 boat parties in my life.
The fear of not being able to leave.
It really, yeah. And it's like, and I am teetotaling.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get
Yeah.
too drunk. I don't want to do anything else. I don't, because if this goes sideways, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And it literally, like, left
It's
such
fun.
an impression.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's so much.
I'm sure it is.
You're also speaking to someone who plays Holy Ship.
Right. But
And
that
I
at
love
least,
it.
like, that's a boat party. That
You're
you
huge.
can-
It's a huge.
That's
boat.
a, yeah. Like, you don't have to get off that boat. Like,
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah.
so
Wild. But I am playing, and I'm playing next month at Sisyphos.
Okay.
I've never played before with Dorley and Oliver Dollar and
All right. Yeah, that's a place I haven't been since they reopened.
yeah.
And that's a place I've been there a few times for like an hour or two to like see this friend or check this out, but I haven't like done a session.
It's wild. It's like
There.
it's like a little village. It has elements that reminds me of the original old Bar 25.
Yeah.
Where you've got these like little lands and little village town, little you know, you can crawl through a hole and get into another room. And
Yeah, it's definitely is a place you can get lost for days. But I haven't done it.
But you definitely also can get lost for days, which is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you arrive Friday and then it's Monday morning? What?
Yeah, I did a lot. I've been more or less sober for the past 6 months, which was also, I think, part of, the whole, like, packing up Berlin, going back to LA. Like,
new chapter.
Yeah, kind of a part of all that. And it's, so I haven't done that. But yeah, I used to love the fact that I was like, yeah, if I go out on Friday and make the decision, Tuesday evening I have a conference call, at which point someone might say, "Where's Glazer?"
Yeah.
I don't know. So anyways, and
it's
it
true.
would just, the world will go on, but it's definitely always an option here.
Yeah.
But I like the reverse of it. I've learned to appreciate the fact that because there's always a party going on, you can party when you want to party, not when the clock says and the liquor laws say it's time for you to go party now. Because usually it's the worst time. The last, if I've been up all day, like midnight is when I'm tired, and I want to go to bed. I like going clubbing at noon with 8 hours of 8 hours of sleep in my sails, which...
That's actually a big reason why I am living here now. Just because leaving New York... People thought, oh, you're going to move to Berlin and you think you're going to focus more on work and you're just going to party. And I try to explain, no, I'm actually going to work a lot more and be more focused because Berlin is actually very slow paced.
Yeah.
It's very chill, which is something that I wanted and I was seeking. And New York did not give me that. It was constant,
constant hustle.
Constant hustle. In Berlin, you can clock out and you can really relax. You can go to parks, you can go to lakes, go to museums, you can have a really nice chill time. And then if you want to go to a party, you can go to a party.
Right.
And like you're saying, you could go in the afternoon.
That's the biggest thing.
And it'll be great.
Yeah, for all the notion that Berlin is like the ultimate in decadence, no, it's actually almost custom made for like middle-aged ravers. Like, at this point, it's like it's put together like let the young people stay, go out at midnight and stay out till 6 a.m. I can't.
Then we can wake up.
Yeah.
9 a.m. Have our coffee, have our brunch,
and
then go have a nice little dance in the sun.
Yeah, and it's been great. Cause it's like I went to 6 hours at Berghain last weekend, and I was like, I didn't have to choose between do I want to go to Berghain or do I want to have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get to have a Berghain and a tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, so it definitely has that sort of.
It's great.
Flexibility, and it's going to be hard to leave.
Yeah, but hey, it's...
Once again, I'm checking out as you're checking in.
Look at that! Checking out, checking in.
You're currently staying at the flat that I stayed at when I first moved here.
That's true.
So,
I forgot about that. It's so wild. That's so funny.
Small world. But
when were you living in that flat?
Summer of 2011. Just for like a month. Yeah.
Was it rough back then?
No, is it rough now?
It's a little rough.
The condition?
No, not the flat itself. The neighborhood.
Oh, the neighborhood. Yeah, the neighborhood was right.
It's a little hairy.
I guess. I mean, to me, coming from like Detroit and then LA.
I mean, I'm saying it's coming from
Yeah, maybe it's gotten worse. I haven't been down there, but I'm like, no one has a gun. Like,
yeah,
it's definitely
shaky.
I never felt any sort of weirdness there.
Right.
But it's an awesome flat with the best bathroom.
Unbelievable. The most epic Liberace. There's columns.
Marble columns.
We have to describe this.
Yeah, it's like blue tile. Everything's like almost has like a
like ceramic. Yeah. Yeah.
Things are kind of. It has like a 2 foot just like half pillar with a mirror top directly next.
Multiple.
Right. It was like a 2 foot one of the 2.5 foot.
Yeah,
one,
exactly.
Right next to the toilet.
Yeah.
Like there's like an old. Yeah, exactly.
What?
Like so you could.
Yeah.
So you could shit while doing cocaine.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's so you could literally have both happening at the same time. There's the cassette, the old like
There's a
car
cassette
stereo
player.
built into the wall. There's I don't think that works, but
The shower though, there's no shower curtain.
Right.
But you're surrounded by columns.
yes,
Greek, very ornate columns.
Yeah.
And the possibility to be sprayed by 8 different showers at once.
that's right. So
At every angle.
Does
your
the-
entire
does the-
body can be sprayed at every angle at once.
did he fix the fuse problem with the hot water in
No.
the bathroom?
No.
So it
That
cuts
still
out.
cuts out.
Because you don't know Sneak, the guy who actually whose
No,
flat
no.
that is. He's just like real deal hacker dude, like one of the truly god prototypes. Too weird for mass production. Whatever
Amazing.
the Hunter S. Thomas
Yeah,
line,
yeah,
but
yeah.
he just does everything to the nth power. So when he needed a new hot water heater for the bathroom, and he had somebody come and put in way too powerful of a hot water heater. Like more, like he's like, bring me the, I don't want the 300 volt, I want the 400
yeah,
volt, whatever
yeah,
the fuck it is. And he said the guy even told him like, this might be a problem. He's like, I don't care, put it in.
Put it in.
And for the rest of his life, like he's, I distinctly remember being in the flat and all of a sudden like hearing a shrill, and I'm like, what? He come out with his towel and he's got this, chubby dude with red hair down to his ass and the palest pale hacker skin. He comes out and I love this guy. We've been friends for like 15 years, but he's like, hits the fuse and goes back.
So ridiculous.
That was 4 years ago and it's still.
Oh,
It'll never be.
It still gets cold. And I don't take a long shower.
No, it's not. It's not a length thing. I don't
the
think
heat.
it's.
If you want to take a cold shower, you're good.
Yeah, but it's something. It's voltage going through fuses.
Oh man. Yeah.
So I guess we should maybe end it on that.
Yeah, wrap it on that. I'm gonna go take a cold shower.
So yeah, so if you're in Berlin and you need a place to stay, Luca has an awesome flat in a sketchy area with half a hot shower.
Liberace bathroom.
And in a Liberace bathroom where you can do your drugs while you're defecating. All right, we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that.
Thanks, man. That's it for this episode of the Rave Curious Podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more conversations with key players in the electronic music community. If you like what you heard on this podcast, let us know. You can give us a shout on Twitter at Rave Curious. You can also like us on Facebook, Rave Curious Podcast. And of course, subscribe on iTunes to make sure you never miss an episode. That's it. Thanks for listening.